Live from KTTC, your weather authority. This is KTTC News at 10.
Continue in Minneapolis tonight. This coming from the death of George Floyd, which continues to spark outrage across the country.
But now what started yesterday as peaceful protests asking for justice are now turning into violence and looting. We have been watching these protests closely all night as they continue to escalate.
KTTC's Kamaria Bray is live in the studio tonight with updates on protesters in Minneapolis. Kamaria, what have you been seeing?
Tom and Caitlin, protesters have taken over certain areas in Minneapolis. Crowds are at the location where Floyd died, the 3rd precinct, and also are looting at Target that's right near the police department.
They're killing us down like dogs!
And that anger is shared among hundreds of people gathered on Minnehaha Avenue and East Lake Street in south Minneapolis this evening. Police officers standing watch at the precinct building behind barriers have sprayed tear gas and shot non-lethal rounds into crowds, trying to get it to disperse. Also tonight, many people walking into the Target across the street and grabbing items. The protester took time to take to Facebook on what is going on as she's in the middle of this demonstration.
It looks like a war zone. I'm so serious. We're out here. There's a lot of people out here outside the 3rd precinct. Just standing in solidarity and raising concern about what happened to George. I hope that the mayor takes action, that he gets these police officers off the rooftop of the 3rd precinct acting like snipers.
This demonstration is expected to go on all night.
And Kamaria, you grew up in this area, I understand. Have you heard anything from neighbors, people who you might know about what is going on tonight?
Yeah, I've talked to a few of my friends, and they're just trying to deal with the process the best way that they can. There's a lot of chants, a lot of high emotions, a lot of people that are very angry, and them themselves are trying to avoid getting sprayed with that tear gas as they're trying to peacefully protest this.
Yeah, what a difficult night. Thank you very much for that report, Kamaria. Meantime, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey has been front and center calling for action and supporting those asking for justice, but he says public safety needs to come first.
Right now, more than ever, I get the need to protest. Nobody will fight harder for those rights to protest than I will. But those rights, they must stop when others' public safety are put at risk.
And protests are happening around the nation today as well. Here's video from Los Angeles as protesters march on a freeway. Reports state these protests have become violent. A police car had its windows smashed after one protester tried to hang off the vehicle, and the officer drove away, injuring the protester.
We're going to take a brief pause from this really heavy news right now and head outdoors and talk to our chief meteorologist, Nick Jansen. And it was a nice day, but some crazy weather did go through earlier this evening.
Yeah, so we have been dealing with the chances for some isolated showers, maybe a couple rumbles of thunder, even the possibility for some small funnel clouds with this frontal boundary moving through. No severe weather on the way through the evening tonight and overnight hours. We might deal with a couple isolated showers. We'll check in on our future track radar. Notice how showers pretty much just stall out as they approach Olmsted County and into Rochester. If you're in Mower County, it might deal with a couple isolated showers there near Austin, but we'll continue to track out all the showers for the overnight hours tonight. Good news is pretty quiet conditions will be on the way once this frontal boundary moves through the overnight hours tonight. And then temperatures currently here in Rochester at 67 degrees. We do have some light sprinkles happening currently down towards the airport. Currently outside on the weather patio, we are dry in northwest Rochester. As we look at temperatures across the area, still upper 60s, lower 70s currently in Austin. As we look at your day planner for tomorrow, temperatures will start things off pretty mild in the mid to upper 60s. A little muggy again for tomorrow. High temperature from today in Rochester, 79 degrees for that, above average. For this time of year. This weekend, though, temperatures a little up and down, maybe only in the 60s for highs come Friday and Saturday. We'll track that out, and maybe the 90s return next week for some of us as well. That's in your Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
Nick, thank you. So here are the facts as we know them after the disturbing video of George Floyd in Minneapolis police custody came to light. Minneapolis police were called for a report of a forgery Monday night and arrested George Floyd. Video released on Facebook shows him being handcuffed and held down by 3 officers, with one using his knee on Floyd's neck. This happened for more than 5 minutes as Floyd pleaded that he could not breathe. He eventually became unconscious, but the officers did not get off of him until the ambulance got to the scene, and he later was pronounced dead. All 4 officers involved have been fired. The FBI is investigating this incident.
And the 4 officers involved in Floyd's death have been identified today. They are Officers Derek Chauvin, Thomas Lane, Tu Tao, and Officer J. Alexander Queuing. Multiple sources have confirmed that Officer Derek Chauvin was the one with his knee on Floyd's throat. And the University of Minnesota is cutting some ties with the Minneapolis Police Department in the wake of what happened. In a statement to students and faculty, U of M President Joan Gable says they will, quote, no longer contract with the PD for additional law enforcement support needed for large events like football games, end quote. In addition, the U of M is cutting ties with Minneapolis police for other specialized services. Gable says the university has a responsibility to uphold values and a duty to honor them.
And the Minneapolis Mayor, Jacob Frey, is asking the justice system to charge the 4 officers involved in Floyd's death. Earlier today, an outraged Frey said if anyone else would have killed Floyd, they would be in jail already.
Why is the man who killed George Floyd not in jail? Based on what I saw, is that the individual, the officer who had his knee on the neck of George Floyd should be charged, and I'm calling on Hennepin County Attorney to do that.
And Attorney General Keith Ellison says that there are many steps and procedures that need to be followed before charges can be filed.
I understand the emotions are running high, and I think it's important for the mayor to channel the emotion of the people who he represents. But I think it is critical that we adhere very closely to the facts and the law and the normal process.
We've heard his name, we've seen the outcry as many have taken to the streets. But who is George Floyd? The man behind the hashtags, the man people saw plead for his life while under the officer's knee. Our Uba Ali saw who George Floyd was in the eyes of his family and best friend, Stephen Jackson Sr.
Public outcry as thousands took to the streets of South Minneapolis Tuesday night.
Everybody in the world needs to be watching this. The world, please watch this.
Watch as many did. George Floyd taking his last breaths with an officer's knee on his neck as he pleaded, "I can't breathe."
They took a life, now they deserve life. I don't feel sorry for them.
Floyd's family saying it's heartbreaking and disturbing to their peace. I wanted to know more about who the man behind the hashtag was, so I asked a man with striking resemblance, his best friend.
We just bonded off the fact that we looked alike, and it's been a bond built off that.
Former NBA player Stephen Jackson gave me a glimpse into Floyd's life.
George was a guy who loved everybody, who gave a helping hand, who wanted to be a provider and protector for everybody. He was living his best days. He moved to Minnesota to change his life.
Hailing from the 3rd Ward of Houston, Texas, a life cut short at 46 Monday night.
It's just frustrating. It makes you angry to see somebody that shows so much love and that spreaded so much love die from so much hate.
Jackson promising to change that narrative to the public, showing them who the man he called his twin really was.
When you hear the name George Floyd, just know he died for a reason and he died for change.
It's one thing to lose a basketball game, but it's another thing to lose a brother. If you could speak to him one more time, what would that conversation be like?
And you very seldom find people who really want to see you win and really mean it. Floyd was one of those people. And if I can say anything to him, I'm gonna miss that, because there's very few people I know on this earth that will support me in a genuine way.
Jackson left me with what Floyd used to tell him.
Show you right, man, show you right. So he's smiling down on us and he's proud, and I'm just happy his name is not going in vain.
Well, a terrible milestone in the battle with COVID-19.
In just a few months, the death toll from COVID-19 related deaths reaches 100,000. Up next, we're going to hear from survivors' families.
KTTC, your weather authority, with Tom Overley, Caitlin Alexander, Chief Meteorologist Nick Jansen, and sports with Pat Lund. KTTC News at 10 continues.
Welcome back. In less than 4 months, more than 100,000 American lives have been lost to coronavirus.
That's almost twice the number of Americans lost during the entire Vietnam War. Nadia Romero has the latest from Washington.
A major morbid milestone, 100,000 Americans dead from COVID-19, and they have names and loved ones still grieving. This is John Clomax. His wife Paulette is trying to come to terms with his death.
Every moment is a mixed emotion, and that's exactly what it was. It's extremely grim.
This week, they would have celebrated his birthday. Instead, a surprise. She found his name featured in the New York Times COVID-19 Sunday paper.
Look where the sun's shining, and it was right on his name. It was unreal. I can't even begin to tell you, but it's sort of his little secret wink that he gives us all the time.
John is one of 100,000 American coronavirus victims. It's a startling number that crosses all political lines and all demographics. But Black people are dying from COVID-19 at a far greater rate.
COVID-19 has ravaged our communities of color, especially the Black and brown communities, and has only exacerbated already existing vulnerabilities, inequalities, disparities, especially in access to health care.
And in memory of the COVID-19 victims,
this virus has visited every family, including my own.
Some political leaders are urging people to take precautions. In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero.
Well, the Rochester City Council takes up the mayor's order to help restaurants establish outdoor dining spaces. What city leaders had to say about restaurants opening up shop. Also, we're going to have another live look at the ongoing protests happening in Minneapolis tonight.
And we're tracking the chance for some isolated showers overnight tonight. Eventually, we'll get some clear skies in the forecast for late Thursday and into your weekend. Your Weather Authority forecast is coming up right after this.
And so here's another live look at the protests happening right now in Minneapolis surrounding the 3rd Precinct building. We're now hearing reports of a fire at one of the businesses that's right across the street from the precinct. Tear gas has been used on the crowd more than once today. Looting is ongoing at a nearby Target, also across the street from that precinct.
If you're not familiar with the area, this intersection of Minnehaha Avenue and East Lake Street is just about 2 miles to the southeast of downtown Minneapolis. Again, this is the second night in a row for demonstrations in this area, and it's expected the activity will continue at least until midnight. In other news tonight, the pandemic and the issues it presents are still very apparent nationwide and locally.
Rochester City Council took some action today and churches reopened. Our Zach Fuller has more on this. And Zach, what can you tell us?
Well, good evening, Tom and Caitlin. The impact of the pandemic was still felt across the city and the state today, with churches reopening and restaurants getting a boost. Rochester City Council members were careful in considering Mayor Norton's executive order to streamline the process for restaurants to use unconventional spaces for outdoor seating.
I think I'm comfortable with the levels of control. I realize we're more in an emergency mode here and we're not doing everything exactly right. I think the driving force in all that we're doing in the pandemic is focused on public safety.
The motion carried unopposed, but the mayor wasn't done there.
And we all saw the letter that the mayor sent to the governor's office. You know, just for the record, I hope that the governor is receptive to our respectful request for perhaps some measure of indoor dining.
Meanwhile, in Rochester, some churches opened for 25% capacity Wednesday.
Just because we are being asked to socially distance doesn't mean we should be spiritually distancing.
With one church, Christ United, holding drive-up services this weekend.
as long as people promise to stay in their cars, and they'll be 6 feet apart from each other, but at least we can see each other.
Meanwhile, Governor Tim Walz says the number of new COVID-19 cases is staying stable.
That pace is relatively stable, which is terrifying as is somewhat of good news. But what we're finding is a better understanding of COVID and the spread in our communities.
But the stable pace comes with the fact that 2 ICUs in the state are getting close to capacity.
Those areas of caution where we're at, we have 2 areas of the state where we're kind of in the yellow on ICU bed capacity, those types of things. But overall, we are maintaining. And again, we're getting, I think, as more data comes in, maybe being able to tell, is this a plateau or is it a calm before the storm?
The governor has not yet responded to Mayor Norton's letter and hasn't said when restaurants will be allowed to open indoor dining in some capacity. Reporting live in the studio, Zach Fuller, KTTC News.
Zach, thank you. And the president of the Rochester Area Chamber of Commerce wants to be president again, this time of the Rochester City Council. Kathleen Harrington made that formal announcement today. She says she's running because, quote, these are unprecedented times, and she will bring the benefit of her experiences, leadership, and team building to this job.
We've had some active weather once again this evening across southeast Minnesota, northeast Iowa. Not severe weather, but we do have some viewer photos from tonight of some showers and thunderstorms. This one coming in from Leanne in Rushford. Notice we can see the rainfall falling. It looks a little scary there, but what you see is actually the rain shaft down below the cloud deck there. So that's rainfall happening off in the distance. That's from Leanne. Then we see a beautiful sunset photo from Mary Jo out in Faribault. Beautiful shot here of the sunset on the lake out there in Faribault. Beautiful shot there, Mary Jo. Thanks for sending that in, and thanks for all the viewer photos. We were flooded with viewer photos tonight. You can always send photos to weather@kttc.com. We currently have just some very light showers, kind of losing a little strength outside now as the sun has completely set. So just a little line of some showers. No thunder, no lightning being reported as of now. We'll start to see a frontal boundary move through overnight. Won't really impact our temperatures too much. Notice temperatures still at 67 degrees in Rochester. Some drizzle at the airport. We're quiet right now in northwest Rochester. It wasn't raining out on the weather patio. Dew points still into the mid 60s, so a little muggy feeling outside. These dew points will be changing as we move through the weekend. Current temperatures outside still upper 60s, down to the lower 60s now. Owatonna at 63, still in the 70s in Austin, Osage, and Charles City. La Crosse at 71 degrees. Now, as we continue to move through the overnight hours tonight, watch some of the rainfall then start to develop mainly to the south and southeast of Rochester, through La Crosse, Black River Falls in Wisconsin, and then Decorah. Could potentially watch rainfall start to continue to slide to the south-southeast. Some areas to the southeast of Decorah, potentially upwards of 1 inch to 2 inches of rainfall overnight through Thursday. We're pretty quiet through Thursday afternoon and evening, and we'll finally see some clear skies on the way as well. Temperatures a little up and down though. We're in the upper 70s tomorrow, then all of a sudden Friday and Saturday only upper 60s for highs. Sunday lower 70s, and then we're right back potentially into the 80s by early next week. 62 degrees for the overnight low tonight. Some isolated showers, especially to the southeast of Rochester this evening. 77 for the high tomorrow. Some morning showers, and then we're clearing late in the afternoon. 7-day forecast, 67 Friday, Saturday, 71 on Sunday. We'll see some sunshine back to the mid-80s next week. Tom?
All right, thank you. Well, a high school basketball player gets a big offer today. Pat will have an update in sports.
But first, providing for our youth as we all continue to social distance. A sweet surprise for many today. Here's some good news for you tonight. The Boys and Girls Club teamed up with multiple local companies to provide for kids in need here in Rochester.
Today from 2 till 6, more than 200 care packages with supplies were given to each kid from the Boys and Girls Club. The initiative is a collaboration of Minnesota Corrugated Box Sam's Club and Boys and Girls Club of Rochester. It was underwritten by Buick GMC of Rochester and Nissan of Rochester.
And the whole point is just to let our members know that we're thinking of them, we miss being with them, and we're looking forward to the time when we get to welcome them back into our building again. So I was just really excited for the opportunity to see them and check in on them, make sure they're doing okay, and say hi, and just let them know how we're thinking of them.
The Boys and Girls Club is offering virtual programming for its kids. You just need to go to the Boys and Girls Club of Rochester's website. Next in sports, Pat has coaching and conference news when we return.
And the young man from Stewartville got yet another basketball offer today, and it's his biggest to date. We're going to be right back with details in sports.
Stewartville's Will Cheddar received his biggest offer yet to play college basketball. Cheddar was offered by the Arkansas Razorbacks earlier this afternoon by head coach Eric Musselman. Cheddar is coming off a junior season where he led the state in scoring, averaging 34.4 points a game, shooting 60.2% from the field. The 6'8" Cheddar has the game both down in the paint and from beyond the arc. He'll also defend the goal, like right there. The Razorbacks are out of the SEC, finished 20-12 this past season before getting shut down during the conference tournament. Arkansas has a Minnesota connection in Coach Musselman. His dad, Bill Musselman, coached the Minnesota Gophers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Eric was on his dad's staff with the Wolves back in the early 90s. Cheddar also has scholarship offers from Richmond, Appalachian State, William and Mary, James Madison, Wyoming, Toledo, Loyola Chicago, Colorado State, South Dakota, Augustana, North Dakota State, and Northern Iowa. Multiple reports indicate tonight that the NBA is moving closer to making a return, most likely this summer in Orlando, Florida. The NBA is working on a multi-phase medical and safety protocols aimed at restarting play. Current projected timelines have home market training camps in July, followed by camps and scrimmages in Orlando, with a resumption of games coming in late July or August. The format for the NBA return is not set. The league is considering a 20-team field with some kind of play-in for a 16-team playoff. The central hub appears to be the Walt Disney Resort Complex in Orlando. Laura Vanelli has been named the girls' head hockey coach at Lourdes High School. Vanelli has been an assistant coach for the Eagles the last 3 years. Fans of the hockey team at the University of Alabama in Huntsville have until Friday to raise $1 million in order to save the program from being cut. UAH has the South's only Division I hockey program, but earlier this week the university announced the program would be scrapped due to funding loss during this pandemic. A GoFundMe effort for the team had raised nearly $180,000 as of noon today. Alabama Huntsville plays in the WCHA with the likes of Minnesota State, Bemidji State, and Lake State. In conference news, the Summit League did not extend an invitation to Augustana University. The school remains committed to becoming a Division I program, but for now will remain in the NSIC with the schools like Winona State, Minnesota State, and UMD. In other conference news tonight, the College of St. Scholastica, located in Duluth, will join the MIAC in 2021. The move will coincide with McAllister's return to football. As the league transitions to a 10-team, 2-division model for the sport, St. Scholastica comes out of the UMAC. The Cup Series was scheduled to stay home for another midweek race tonight at Charlotte Motor Speedway, but Mother Nature intervened. Persistent rain in Concord, North Carolina has pushed the start of the Alsco Uniforms 500 back a day. The race will now get underway Thursday night at 6 o'clock on FS1. Way back Wednesday, we did a story back in 2006 on Marcus Sherrills as he was preparing for a walk-on with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Marcus was coming off a senior season where he rushed for over 1,000 yards, gaining 100 yards or more in 7 of 9 games played that year. Marcus looking awfully young. His brother Mike was already at the University of Minnesota, starring at the linebacker position. He was a 2-time captain of the Gophers, which doesn't happen very often. We all know the story from here. Marcus earned a scholarship with the Golden Gophers, then ended up playing 10 years in the NFL, mostly with the Minnesota Vikings. Look at the kid lifting weights in jean shorts. That's your Way Back Wednesday, a look at Marcus Sherrills 14 years ago. Tracy Erlinson is the new head volleyball coach at Kenyon Wanamingo. That's a look at sports. Have a good rest of your night.
An update now on our top story, the ongoing protest demonstration at the 3rd Police Precinct in South Minneapolis.
The crowds have been there most of the day and all night so far, with a fire now at one of the buildings in that area. We are hearing reports of a fire at one of the businesses across the street from the police precinct. Officers there have been standing watch behind barriers. They sprayed tear gas and shot non-lethal rounds into the crowd, trying to get everyone to disperse. Also tonight at the Target across the street, several reports of looting and vandalism. And if you're not familiar with that area, this intersection of Minnehaha Avenue and East Lake Street is roughly 2 miles to the southeast of downtown Minneapolis. So again, this is the second night in a row for demonstrations in this area. The protests at the precinct could last throughout the night. Who knows how long? Of course, we'll keep you covered on that.
We'll certainly continue to monitor the very latest with that situation, and you can get the very latest details on KTTC News in the morning.
Well, thank you for watching us tonight at 10 o'clock.
Be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.